Yeah. Okay. Well, it is 10:03. I'm sure a few more people will join us. We got a few people who can't make it today. I know Gordon can't, but Ann's here. And Judith Lichtenberg can't. She's getting ready to go on away for a week and is really busy. Um, so I think we can get started. Good morning, everybody. I guess we can go around really quick. And so, Anne, you introduce yourself, just name, title, and whatever, and hand it off to the next person. The next person will go around.
I am Ann Bocchini-Pack. I'm co-founder and director of advocacy for Prepare. And John, you are the next person I have on my screen.
Sounds good. Good morning, everybody. And I assume John Feaster. I didn't know if it was John Feaster or John Griffin, but John Feaster, Deputy Assistant Secretary, Maryland Department of Labor, and I will kick it to John Griffin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is John Griffin. I'm a lived experience member, hoping to provide some advocacy to help push this effort along. And I will pass the baton to Andrea Cantora.
Hi, I'm Andrea Cantora. I'm an associate professor of criminal justice at University of Baltimore, and I also head up our Second Chance College program at Jessup Correctional Institution. And I am the chair of the Higher Ed Work Group. Is chair the right term, Steve? But I oversee that work group. And I will pass it to Mary.
Good morning. I'm Mary Gable. I'm an assistant state superintendent with the Maryland State Department of Education, and I represent our state superintendent, Dr. Carrie Wright. And I will pass it to Jocelyn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Alasko, and I'm here on behalf of Delegate Simpson, who sits on the Judiciary Committee.
You know, pass it to somebody?
Yes, I will pass it to, let's see. I will pass it to Jessica.
Good morning. I'm Jessica Johnson, Deputy Director of Correctional Education. I'll pass it to Danielle.
Danielle Cox, Director of Education, DPSCS. And let's see here. Let's go to Christian Gant.
Good morning, Christian Gant, Assistant Attorney General with the Maryland Office Attorney General, also one of the leads for the Maryland Equitable Justice Collaborative, and I will pass it to Lucy Steinitz. Did I say that right?
That's right. I'm a newbie here. I'm with Major and the Alternatives to Violence program in a couple of the state prisons. And I'm delighted to be part of this group, at least for today. And I'm going to pass it. Has Christian Gant spoken?
He has. I'm the one who passed it to you.
All right. Elizabeth Embry. I think you haven't yet.
Hello, everyone. Delegate Embry. I represent a district in Baltimore City and also sit on the Judiciary Committee. And I will pass it to Charles Adams.
Oh, thank you. Good morning. Charles Adams, Professor of Criminal Justice at Bowie State University, as well as the Executive Director of our Prison Education Program, housed at Jessup CI. I will pass it to Karen.
I'm going to assume you meant Esteric because I saw that Delegate Simpson just joined. I'm Karen Esteric. I'm also a lived experience member and a director of HR for a company out of DC. This week, I just hired my 150th justice impacted person. So I'm super celebrating this week. And I will pass it to Delegate Simpson.
Okay, so I'm Delegate Simpson from the city of Frederick area. Was there something in particular we were supposed to share? Because
no, just introduce yourself and pass it on to maybe a few more people.
Okay. Did John go already?
Yep, both Johns.
Okay. And Lucy went already. Jocelyn, did Jocelyn go already?
Yep.
All right, you tell me who to pass it to. My computer wouldn't start.
Delegate Simpson, I'll go. Listen, hi, I'm Melissa Fio. I'm an education attorney and assistant public defender at the Maryland Office of the Public Defender. Happy to be here. And I'm wondering if Jamel Freeman already went?
No, I did not. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamel Freeman, peer with lived experience, recent social work master's graduate, and also I sit on the subcommittee for the Maryland Justice Equitable Collaborative through the Attorney General's office. And I will pass it to Dr. Steven. Did you go?
Not really. I'm trying to keep track of everybody here myself. I'm Steve Stewart. I'm chair of the commission, and Rochelle is listed. Can Rochelle introduce herself?
Good morning, Rochelle Rubin, Director of Correctional Education. I don't think Ainsley went. Ainsley?
Hi, I'm Ainsley. I am the staff person for this commission. I am the policy and legislative manager for GoCap. Zakia, if you'd like to go.
Hi, everyone. I'm Zakia Lee, Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs at the University System of Maryland office, and I am in transit and have no idea who's left.
Well, let's
Ramika, have you gone?
I have not. Hello, everyone. My name is Ramika Robinson. I am the Director of Continuing Education and Professional Advancement for GPEP, Goucher Prison Education Partnership. I am also a returning citizen, and I do some work on the Lived Experience Committee formed under former Secretary Rob Green, and is currently being sought by the current Secretary Scruggs. So thanks for having me.
I think Adam just joined us. You want to introduce yourself, Adam? He might be having a little trouble
Yes.
there. with-
I'm having a little bit of technical issues. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep.
My name is Adam Cummings. I'm the Executive Administrator to the Office of the Correctional Ombudsman. Thank you for having me here.
Okay, if there's anybody else who we missed, would you please introduce yourself? Anybody? I think maybe we got everybody, or else they're having trouble with their mic. But if you do come on, just you can introduce yourself or put something in the chat. Anisha just joined. Would you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Anisha Letal. I'm with the Post-Conviction Division of the Office of the Public Defender. Nice to see everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, I think that's it. So why don't we get going, and Ainsley can throw the agenda up. Here's our agenda for today, and we'll go through the minutes. We have a panel on the August 20th that we'll talk about for MAGJC. We're going to have reports. I'm going to make a report and have discussion with reports from all of our subcommittees, and then we'll talk about future presentations from Mackinac Center for Public Policy and from RAND from Dr. Lois Davis. We'll have discuss. They're not here today. We'll discuss just briefly what they're going to be doing in upcoming meetings. So with that, I guess we can, post the minutes, and I don't want to go through it other than have people make some comments if you had a chance to go through it, or any misrepresentations or omissions or edits. Just let us know. Otherwise, Ainsley's got the report. She's going right now through the workforce meetings and our open discussion at the end. Is there anything that we may have missed that if everybody is okay with the minutes that were sent out by Ainsley yesterday, and these will all be archived, by the way, in the Dropbox. So I'd like a motion to accept the minutes from anybody.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Any second, please?
I second them.
Okay, so the motion carries. So the minutes are accepted. Thank you. So there is a meeting August 20th at the Langston Hughes Community Center on Arbutus Avenue in Baltimore. Be careful, there's an Arbutus. If you look on the, when I Google, I got Halethorpe. There's an Arbutus Avenue there with the same number, 5011. I don't know what that is, but it's in Baltimore. And Ainsley, would you describe the meeting a little bit? And it's open to everybody.
Yeah, of course. We were invited by the Maryland Equitable Justice Community Coalition, one of those C words, to have a panel on our interim report. So we tried to get one person from each work group, as well as representation from DPSCS and the Department of Labor. So we're going to be having a panel chaired by Dr. Judith Lichtenberg about that interim report on August 20th. So we hope to see you all there.
Anybody want to make any comments about the meeting? Some people are probably involved with putting it together. Any other suggestions? Or I think it'd be really great. You can do it remotely, right, Ainsley? Isn't there, in case people can't come? I don't want to encourage face to face, but
there was a Zoom link. I think they're still trying to figure out the virtual option, but I believe there is going to be a virtual option. Just don't hold me to it.
yeah, Ainsley is going to unfortunately not be there, but she wants to join from her home state of Utah. So we hope that they have a Zoom available for her. Okay.
This is Christian again. While I didn't organize it, I am one of the, like I said, coordinators for MEJC. I know Elizabeth Hilliard, one of the co-chairs for the prison jail detention work group, as well as other members, have been working really hard on it. So, as I said, I will be there. Hope to see you all there as well.
Good. Thank you. So hopefully people can make it. And even if you come just for a session, that's great. It's from 8:30 is opening for breakfast. I think they have light breakfast, 9 o'clock, and it ends at about noontime. Noon to 1 o'clock, I think it ends. So it's not going to take your whole day. So I really appreciate everybody coming today. It's August, and a lot of people. If we were in Europe, there'd be nobody, because in Europe goes. If you've ever been to Europe, live in Europe, everybody just on vacation on August. But Americans are different. We just sort of take our vacation here and there. So I appreciate everybody joining in today. Ainsley, I guess you could put up the report. We have finished. This is my report, primarily of the visits, but a couple other observations I've made lately. And so we visited. Some of us visited all 6 prisons. We went to Hagerstown and RCI and MCTC. We went to the Center of the State in Jessup Correctional Institution, and the Maryland Correctional Institution for Women. And then a number of us trucked all the way out to ECI East and ECI West in Somerset. And we visited with correctional and educational staff we went to many of the classrooms, talked to teachers, principals, wardens, assistant wardens, etc. I'm going to try to paraphrase and not read this whole thing since you had it anyway. But I thought that people were wide open with their ideas and opinions. We did get a chance to listen to some of the folks who are incarcerated, particularly JCI. I have had contact with people since then, teachers, wardens, who have continued to discuss, particularly RCI, the warden, she's very concerned about not being able to provide education. And so I find people trying to solve problems. I thought people were very open. Let me share my opinion, because the biggest thing that I noticed is our lack of security staff in the East and the West. And I'm making a comment here from my experience working in corrections and talking to professionals. These institutions being locked down means you stay in your cell 22 or more hours a day. You might get out in the day room. You're not probably going to any programs in the buildings. And this is a powder keg for problems. So that the staff and residents are in danger when this starts happening. And I noticed at a couple institutions, the biggest thing that's being trucked around are bags of ice in the hot weather to keep people cool. And so it's really a tough situation. And so we are working under, particularly in East and West, very stressed situation. No matter what we would do for any program, education, mental health, substance abuse, they ain't going to happen. They just aren't going to happen because people cannot come out of their units to go to programs, and that's very, very tough. We could recommend all kinds of reforms, but there's not much we can do, except maybe some more technology. We'll get to that. Please remember that our population in this Maryland's prisons are characterized by relatively low levels of educational attainment. And there's and it's been noted in research, there are higher levels of mental health issues in prisons because of the lack of residential facilities in most states for mentally ill, and they end up in jail. And so these people are not getting services either. Many people, if not the majority of people who go to prison, have had some substance abuse issues as well, and they're not meeting them to take care of those programs. So, so this is the situation that Maryland is in, and it's really hard to solve. And talking to the wardens and system wardens, it's very difficult. I noted, and others noted, that they're in these institutions where there is no class, they're using folders that the teachers are creating and sending back and forth. And one of the teachers showed me how they keep track of it on computer. And if people respond, they get credit for school. If they're participating, there are not enough tablets for everybody. I think in RCI there are 50 or 53 tablets, and literally a couple hundred or more students potentially who are sitting in their housing units, and so they don't. And the tablets just are there during the day. They're taken back and forth. They're not left overnight. Teachers told me wherever I talked to them at institutions that were locked down, that this is the terrible way to teach. They just can't reach students, particularly those who have difficulties. Special education, the teachers there are shipping them to other institutions, or often not seeing people as often as they could because of shutdowns. At almost all institutions, there's some shutdowns, but I'll let Alyssa talk about special ed when we get, this will be part of my report. I'll ask her to say a few words. So we've noted the lack of technology. There aren't enough tablets and no intranet so that students and teachers could communicate if they had the tablets back on the housing units. And I know Danielle is working on that as is Dollar, but that takes money and resources, which we don't have at this time. In the central region, JCI, I was really, I went to JCI and I hadn't been there for a good number of years, but it was an institution that was built with no career tech resources, so it's all academic programming. But there is career transition and stuff going on, but no training programs. I thought the teachers and the students that we met with were enthusiastic. There were a fair number of students in each classroom. We met in one and listened to a number of the folks who are I always forget the exact name of the group, but these are the prepare type people that Ann has worked with. They're doing all kinds of good things, keeping peace in the institutions, helping tutoring in some cases. So I was really enthused seriously about all the people we met, corrections as well as education. I think they're enthusiastic, want to do a job. They're working under tough circumstances. But one of the things that I noticed that while attendance could be relatively high, compared to current enrollment, the classrooms are almost everywhere are below capacity, and 15 or 20 students should be in most academic classrooms, with the exception of special education, and it's far from that. I wanted the commission, after I make my report, to consider making a recommendation that we add a new item to the data collection, and that is, what is the capacity of each program? And so we can see even if attendance is really good, it might be at 100%, we might only be at 60% or 50% of capacity. Something has changed since before COVID. There were more students in the classrooms. The teachers told me that, and we haven't recovered. And I'm glad we took the visits to see how, that particular problem. At MCIW, we were told by the principal there were no waiting lists. And then the contrary, when we visited and I went around and talked to teachers, they said they do have waiting lists. So it needs to be looked into. And one teacher in particular had a folder with sheets of paper for each one of the students. Some of them were stapled, so she had several sheets where she had screened people for her program, and she had 25 maybe or 30, I don't know, in that folder that she had recommended to the principal, who recommends them to case management for her class. This was computer, I guess it was Microsoft Word. It's I don't know how many months it is, 6 months program, and she's only got 5 or 6 students. And she's got stations for, I didn't count them all, but I think there are about 15 or more stations. And so what's going on there? That we've got a teacher who has screened and has people that she thinks are available or should be in the program. There are people she's talked to who want to be in the program, yet 2 or 3 months to get there, and then some of them can't go because their sentence is too short. And I think we need to really take a look at this. I'm pointing this out, and I think an in-depth look at the case management process for getting people in school, and find out what problems there are, what can be fixed. Another thing I noted there, and the coordinator, academic coordinator, who was with us on many of these visits, Patrick, said that there's a readiness test. It's an official test. It's a test that's produced to predict your possibility of getting a GED on the regular GED test. And that if a person scores 145 or better, they should be scheduled for the GED exam. But the principal said that she holds them up to 150. And so why do we have one school that says you have to have 150 on that readiness test before we'll give you the test, whereas everywhere else, or those places we visited, say have 145. I know Patrick said he was working on trying to figure this out and work it out, but to me, that should be a policy that's set by central office so that we have uniformity throughout the system. I know that women don't transfer to the men's facilities and things are a little different, but still they should have the same opportunities. MCTC, I talked to some teachers, one of whom I hired years ago, and he's still doing well, and the capacity there is down. Although in the vocational areas, the classes were filled. We observed some of the vocational programs, construction, it was carpentry and masonry and a couple other rooms we looked in. And as I'd seen in the past, there were 15 or 20 students. But in the academic program, that's not true. The warden said that I think the population was up to 1,900 or 2,000, which is pretty much a full institution. And so why are they lagging? He did say there are some units in lockdown, but again, are we having a problem here that could be solved with a better screening system and a better case management system? I don't know, but I think it's something we need to look into. So I would like the commission to have a discussion about this and during this meeting and get some guidance about what we want to try to do to help solve the enrollment situation at these schools. So special education. I'll take a break here and ask Alyssa. You went to at least one or two institutions. What would you like to report a little bit on what you saw about special education?
Well, I first want to say, I'm speaking as a special education attorney. I'm not a special education educator or provider. So I'm not in a position to kind of evaluate, substantively a program. What I think that this process has done for me is just raise some questions. I think we still don't have the handbook that's been revised. Nope. And we still don't have MSDE's latest monitoring report. which would be super helpful. I will also say that the facilities that we were in was Jessup, where they don't have any special education services, and that that's just what it is for a number of reasons. I think space, and I'm not sure the other reasons, but it is true that students get sent there. And then it's discovered that they have an IEP, and then they have to go through a transition process, which, raises, and the administration, there are issues that I just have no experience about. But I would think that, initially their special education status would be a basis to determine which facility is the most appropriate for them, as opposed to going to Jessup, discovering they have an IEP, then being transitioned, having to be transitioned to a new facility. So that was one question. At the women's facility, they had no special education eligible students. The one student that I was advised had been there previously was in the solitary confinement for quite a while, I think, and was getting packets. So that raises concerns. So I don't have anything like substantive to say in terms of like recommendations and things like that. I don't know that I'm in a position to do that. I'll just say that the experience is, raises questions as we kind of gather more information.
Well, I even though you're not a teacher, I mean, there's some things that a person can observe. And I talked to a couple of special ed teachers, RCI, they had somebody who screened them and sent them elsewhere because they have no services. And so we didn't see a lot of instructional time. At GCI, things were going on, and at the women's, there were people in some of the classes, but we didn't get a chance to really look in depth. And I think it would really be great to have a visit geared at special ed at key institutions, if that would be good, Alyssa. And Mary Gable's on here from the Maryland Department of Education. So there is concern that we haven't seen the manual yet and the audit or whatever report. And so, Mary, do you have any thoughts on that?
And so, hi, Alicia. I did, I just looked through my emails to see, because at our last meeting, Nancy, what was the date of our last meeting? Because I sat here and I'm going to resend the question. I was looking for my email to the assistant suit. What was our last meeting?
Our last meeting, I think it was July. I have to look through my calendar.
Sorry.
July 10th. July 10th.
Yeah, okay.
July 10th. Okay. I will resend this. I'm sure there's lots going on. And so let me just put it at the top of Dr. Hickman's email and ask again regarding the report, because I mentioned the requesting a copy of the special ed revised policies document and the result of the recent monitoring. So let me check on that again for you.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay. Hopefully by next meeting in September, we'll have resolved that issue. And I know August is a tough month because teachers, I mean, they're off for the summer. The Maryland Department of Education probably is doing less, but I hope we can get these. If they exist, well, I don't know why we can't. There should be public information. And we're requesting that, and there shouldn't be anything that we can't get. At least that's what I was told, by Adam, for example. Certain documents like that are public information. We're requesting them for a good reason. So, Mary, I hope that can be solved. I appreciate your efforts there. Okay. And Alyssa, thank you.
Yeah, let me just say one other quick thing. I mean, the data is what it is. We do see that, I think it was 1.9% of special education students passed the GED. And then there's been the question of, is the GED the best path for students? And I will tell you, just from a case perspective, we do have students who are, charged as adults, maybe held in DJS, maybe continue to be, their adult case continues, and they have like 2 credits left to graduate, and they're a student with an IEP. If they end up in the adult system, that 2 credits of 2 credits towards a high school diploma gets wiped once they turn 18 and end up in the in an adult facility, and they have to then pursue the GED. I know that's a structural issue and not anything that the commission has, power to change. Obviously, that would be a legislative issue, but I'm actually seeing that in real time, and it's just really hard when you're working with students who then realize that those 19 credits that they've worked towards are for naught, because now they have to start at the GED. I also don't know, and I would love more information about the certification idea for students with disabilities. And so I'm not sure if the idea is that we are now moving students with an IEP to the official certificate track. And is that through MSDE? Is MSDE approve that? What is the criteria for being for getting like a special education certificate versus?
I can answer that.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful.
So, students, we want most students to be on the track for a diploma, which means a total of 22 credits and the assessments and so on and so forth. There are students that who are not going to make that, and so that student completes all the standards that are part of the special education certificate, and we have students that receive this certificate as opposed to a diploma. And we have students in our K-12 schools, and as you were well aware, students can stay in school until they're 21. And so that's not new.
Right. I just didn't know if the reference to that certificate program is the same that we know in the community.
I think so.
And so that would have to be done through an IEP process, right? Because the parent and the student have to agree to that. And I don't have the manual, so I'm assuming that they would be using that process, but that's like the technical compliance piece.
I assume it's not that the credits are lost, it's that they are not putting the student through the classes that student would need. A student who has 19 credits is really close. And that means they need X number of courses depending. And therefore, I don't know, because I'm not an expert in this area, how they would get the courses. So I think that's why they move them. I had a question before, and then I'll hush up. But when a student is put and they meet the readiness score in the GED, and there are people from labor here that are experts, I don't know whether they then go directly to taking the test. I assume there's preparation that is done for the GED at some point through the program. I just wanted to mention that. And there are other people that have raised their hand.
So, go ahead, Rochelle.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, Stephen. I wanted to directly answer Mary's question, which is yes. Even though they take the ready, it just gives us an idea of the fact that yes, they are able to pass the GED, and there is still preparation that they receive in preparation for that test. So they don't go directly to the GED. We actually look at the sections where they could use additional support, and we're supporting them directly in those sections to be successful. The next question, the special education handbook has to go through a variety of approval processes, but we're almost there. And so we have it, we do plan to share it, so that will be made available. And I wanted to speak just briefly to the certification process. I think Mary described it appropriately. We would apply, other LEAs do it. We just have not had that in correctional education. So what we would do is go through the process of applying, making sure that we're correctly identifying students who need to be on that certification track, and then be able to offer that. But we're certainly not looking to use that. Our primary goal is to make sure that students, if able, can get to the GED, get that diploma. So this is just another way to honor the work that many of the students put forth, but just may not have the ability to ascertain the diploma.
Okay, thank you, Rochelle. It's very, very helpful. I just think we have something here that See, we do, as just mentioned, we don't have the power to do anything. We're recommending, and that's what the commission is going to recommend, and then people have to take it from there. So, but we do have the thorny issue here about getting a high school diploma versus a GED, and the correctional education program at Labor is not a school district, so you can't give credit, to finish the program. And that's a legislative issue. I really strongly recommend that we get that a recommendation to the legislature to look at this. I don't know what the process is, but I really would like the Maryland Department of Education, Public Safety, Alyssa, other people that need to work together with the legislature. Maybe we'll come up. We have a couple delegates, and maybe their staff on this commission who could work with us. Judiciary, for example, that's where it's going to have to go, because it's going to have to change the law possibly. So we really want to do that. And one last thing, then we go on to report and some other things. Rochelle, you said it's going through an approval process, and we have it. So who has it? Labor has it. MSD has it. Where is it with the manual or at this time?
So Labor has it. It's gone through our legal process. That's one of the approvals that I spoke of. It does have to go through our policy unit and our legal department, and it comes back to John and myself, and it's gone through that. So I believe we should have it for you at least by next week.
Okay, that's great. So when you do that, John and Rochelle, working closely with Mary and with Alyssa, and then copying us, and then when it's all set, we're going to make sure that everybody in the commission is aware, has a copy of it if they want it, so these documents. So thank you. So we'll put on the agenda next week an update on where we are with these documents. So that shows that we're having some progress here, and that's wonderful. We're moving along. Okay. Let me just mention a few more things about the report. What I'm going to do before we finish is ask the commission to support looking into this, a couple issues. One is the capacity, why we're on at capacity when we have good attendance but don't have full classrooms. And then we're going to talk about the calendar versus school days in a second here, but so we'll bring up a couple of discussions and ask the commission, maybe take a vote and say yeah or no. We're going to make a recommendation. So we in the report, we just have a few more things. I made an observation after the visits that there was a CEC, Correctional Educational Council meeting, and Ainsley and I attended. It's up to 2 hours, up to 2 hours long. We were observers. We couldn't speak or enter the chat, and people were not aware. We weren't on the list of attendees. So the only people who knew we were there probably are Rochelle and those who gave us the opportunity. The Correctional Education Council, I dug out the law that created it, and I've put the citation here. Is supposed to advocate and promote interested educational programs, ensure quality education, equal opportunity, review program instruction, the correctional institutions on a regular basis to make sure the unique needs of population are being served. And in its review, it's supposed to look at curriculum guides, course of study resources, materials, textbooks, etc. And the Director of Correctional Education was supposed to meet with the council about these programs and consult with the Commissioner of Corrections and award in each institution. At the meeting, a week ago, the CEC meeting that we attended, there was no mention of anything about the commission. And the commission has raised in its interim report a lot of issues that I think the CEC should be aware of that relate to all their responsibilities. So I was very concerned because in my mind and in my experience, when I worked for the Maryland Department of Education, our CEC, which had a different name then, we reported to them, and there was a lot more oversight. The state superintendent of schools sat on that commission, and he or she was often there at these meetings, and we pointed out issues and what we're doing, and we got deadlines. And I saw some really nice presentations by people from labor about what's going on, but no mention of any of the issues that we raised that I thought were important. So I really would like to talk more about that, and maybe to have a meeting with John and Rochelle and Danielle and others to find out more about what the CEC is doing in its role. And maybe I missed something because they do other things between meetings, what have you. But I think it's an area we should be looking into, because if we were going to recommend some changes to the delivery of correctional education, which is the purpose of this commission, we need to have a school board, so to speak, a CEC that's actually doing more than just listening and applauding, and it needs to be more involved. So that let me leave that there. We can come back to that. I know, Rochelle, you want to say something, but let me finish my report. And then there's another issue that came up, that funding, and Danielle and others can talk to this as well. But there traditionally, and it goes back years, corrections had money in their budget that they would devote to filling in the gaps, so to speak. And it was always helpful. We got some contract money, we got materials, some computers, things like that. And so up until this year, that fund dollar in public safety would work to spend that money on education, but it was up to $4.3 million, but now more than 50% of the money has been transferred over to dollar by Department Budget and Management. And Delegate Amphrey was concerned about it, and so I asked Danielle for some information, and I sent that over to his office, and because there's concern about that, what's going to happen to that money when we're so tight on budget and need funds for this and that, and how is it going to be accounted for, et cetera. And how did it even happen that without any discussion between, what I understand, without any real discussion between public safety and dollar? So I'll leave it at that. So I don't know if some people want to comment on my last couple of things, but let's go ahead. Danielle, Rochelle, I'm sure I'm not looking to see whose hands up, but Ainsley, whose hands are up next? Maybe you should call them in order.
Just Rochelle.
Okay.
So thank you. I absolutely agree that the CEC Council is a significant component of what we do in correctional education. I do want to clarify that this was one meeting, that we have a schedule of meetings, and I think this is one that you attended. And I welcome the input. So the way that we structure the meetings, and the council is a part of creating that structure, is that at the end of the year, we do have a meeting where we're reporting out on what the goals were that were set out to be accomplished for correctional education. And so that's the meeting that you attended. It wasn't necessarily an applause session. What it was us saying, here is the goals that we set. Here's where we made it. Here's where we didn't make it. Here's what we're thinking about going forward. At no point has there been a discussion between us about how we incorporate the work from this commission, which is brand new. And I think it's an appropriate conversation and discussion, and I welcome it. And if there's a way for us to determine how that becomes incorporated into the CEC and how that happens, I think that's completely appropriate, but we haven't had that opportunity to engage in that level of discourse. So what you saw was just us presenting the end of the year, which is much of the information that will be reflected in the annual report. So we try to give that to the council ahead of time. And in a subsequent meeting, I think the timing is great for us to discuss where it is that we need to go, what are some of those issues, and how we can sort of reformulate that. So I wanted to speak to that. As far as the budget, I will defer to John.
Cool. And thank you for that, Rochelle. I also want to add that the CEC is a council just like this one that isn't a labor council. So the deputy secretary and the deputy secretary of labor and the secretary of DPSCS co-chair that council with a variety of stakeholders with a similar makeup to this particular council as well. And while, Rochelle, I appreciate you're going to make those recommendations for some of those changes to include the work that's done by the PEDR, it's up to the council as to whether or not they incorporate the information that's shared at this particular council or commission, should I say. As far as the budget goes, what I will say is that, number one, you mentioned here, and I just try to, stick to the facts. A lot of the budget piece of it is political. But what I'll say is that of the 4.3 million, the first year we weren't told that it got increased to 4.3 million. The second year, when we found out, we put together a spending plan that has to be approved by DPSCS to spend the money, and we were told, no, you can't spend it, which resulted us in the third year actually petitioning the deputy secretary of DPSCS. We talked to DPSCS before it went to DBM to discuss what our concerns were, and where we landed was for DBM to give us a smaller portion of it. To be honest with you, I almost thought that all 4.3 should come over to labor so that we could make proper use of those funds, but they did not. And just very specifically, we did talk to DPSCS prior to making the request, and it was as a result of DPSCS, this is not specifically to Danielle or anything like that, but just through our processes, a lot of this goes way above, myself, Rochelle, Danielle. We weren't allowed to spend the money, and it reverted and got lost. And that's how we ended up where we are in the funding situation.
Okay, thank you. Because I'm getting different versions, and I'm purposely putting it out there to find out from either side.
Yeah.
Danielle?
I would say that the not allowed was because it was at the end of the fiscal year and the money had not been spent yet. So our Deputy Secretary of Administration took it to pay for overages of overtime costs, because we were $2-3 million in the hole for that, and it was June, and it had not been spent.
And Danielle, this is so we put it out there to use it for the infrastructure project.
Correct.
And we said we got to wait for the network assessment.
Right.
And that was well before the end of the year.
I know, but that was a DBAM thing. They said you could use it, and then they came back and they said you couldn't use it.
Yeah, I want you. And like
that
I said,
wasn't us saying you can't use it. That wasn't us saying going back against that. That was DBAM. So
all right, I would like, because I don't want to belabor this at today's meeting, but I would like John and Danielle to maybe get together and put together a report on how this happened to make it more clear, okay?
And Stephen, what I will say, and this is for the commission as well, even though the funds transfer, they're still being used for exactly the same thing, and the services don't change as a result.
I sure hope so, and I would think so, and I appreciate that. And so I think from the commission's viewpoint, we'd like to make sure that happens, because vacant positions get wiped out, money that's sitting around gets spent on other things, and we don't have that much. Saying, correctional education, I think we're all in favor of that and feel like want to be part of the effort, So Danielle and John, I'd like to get, Danielle's already given me a lot of information. I asked for it. John, if you would please, what you just said, send a note to us and explain it to the whole commission and what it's going to be spent for and stuff like that. That would be very helpful. Okay. All right. Thank you. I guess that's the end of my report. I'd like to very quickly get the sense of the commission. The first recommendation is that let me read it in my report and see if we can get the opinion from everybody on this. And I asked the commission to approve a new item of classroom capacity in the data collection system for each institution's monthly educational report. Then that should be fairly simple. You can look at the classroom, see the ratings. They've been, they haven't changed. One good thing I learned is the schools are still being used as schools. They haven't lost, to the institutions I went to, haven't lost space to other programs. But what are the capacities for each? So if we could add that to the data collection, because you guys are going to be sending us monthly reports. So does the commission, is there any objection? Let me put it that way, to having Dollar put a line of capacity for the academic programs and for career tech programs, so we know, are we up to capacity or not? Okay. Is that a fair request? Does anybody have any problem with that?
So the only question I would have to Rochelle is, do we currently have a method in place at the moment to easily get that capacity figure to report out on?
So that's going to take some doing in all transparency, but I think Dr. Johnson and I are well underway with that work with the correctional education team. I think this part of it, if I may offer, should also include a close work with case management.
Exactly.
I think that has to go hand in hand.
Right. And Rochelle, I originally asked for this so we can figure out where do we need to look to see where things have to be looked at as case management. Let me disagree with one thing you said. I don't think it's difficult to call the principals and say, how many desks do you have in each academic room? Because I mean, that's the capacity. They have so many desks. And the shops are pretty much rated already. The teachers have a certain capacity, 15, 20, depending on institution, smaller rooms, they don't have enough. And, for the same, like masonry might be different. It's two different sites. But how do they rate the capacity? And because those rooms were rated, I know they were in the past, it shouldn't be too hard to get a ballpark figure, about how many should be in the academic program. The principal, for example, at JCI, he's got 40 some students. She said next semester she hopes to have 60 some, and I asked her capacity. She says, I have room for 90 academic people. I have room for 90, but we're at 44. She hopes to get to 60. So there's something, why can't we get closer to 90? Those people are doing a bang up job, and the warden is enthusiastic as can be. The inmates were positive towards the warden as they went around. There's something that I'm sure we could, get those rooms up, and we'd get those students in school or find them. And if not, why? Maybe there's something beyond our control, but I really feel we have a responsibility to look into that. Okay. That's my preaching for today. I hope maybe that's too strong, but.
Steve,
right.
Just for clarity, years and years and years ago, DPSCS worked with, we had to go by fire marshal codes of how many desks and students can be in each classroom. That was given labor. That's in CE student. That is per each facility. Each school's capacity is already labeled and on the state stat reports.
Can you
that's something labor will have to give you, is the pool. That's an easy query report that can be pulled.
Yes, I hope so. And then I know the library is the same thing. The librarian FCTC said she would love to have 60 there, but the fire marshal said X number.
Correct.
So, okay.
And we actually look at that for ACA standards and everything too. So that's something that has to be recorded by labor. So
can we have a report on that next meeting on capacities? I don't think that's hard to do in the September meeting. Okay. So I assume that if there's been no objection, that we now go forward with getting a capacity rating, and by next meeting we can talk about it and maybe set that, see what we've got. Because Danielle, if you know there's reports on this, and we can pull this together. Okay, shouldn't be rocket science. All right.
I'm sure Rochelle can work with Ben and Jim and get it done. So I'll let labor take care of that.
Okay, well, I hope the three of you that I see John, I see Danielle, I see Rochelle, and a nice portrait on my screen. I hope the three of you will work together on this. Okay, thank you. I'll have another thing later. I want to talk about the calendar days versus seat time, but I think I've been taking up a lot of time with this report, and I want to get to the reports from the work groups. Okay, unless there's any other hands up right now, Ainsley.
No.
Okay, so
hand.
Is ABGED. Ainsley, do you want to talk about that? People are getting
yeah, and just raised her hand if she wants to go first.
Yeah, I wanted to make one comment, but I was kind of waiting for you to open it up because I didn't want to jump in with a idea from what you were talking about with the funding. Would it be possible to get, like, this was in a previous work group that I was in, we were able to get like the chart, like the operations chart, and see kind of how these departments work together? Like, does something like that already exist? Like an SOP chart to see kind of where everybody is falling, and then also with funding to be able to see all the funding that's relevant to correctional education, because it kind of lives at this weird intersection where like some of it's over here and some of it's over there. And we don't really know what's where as the commission. We also don't know the funding sources. And my understanding is a lot of this funding is threatened by the new federal, some of these new federal changes. And so I'd kind of like to be able to see that as an overview, what funding exists on both sides. Where does it come from? Is it under threat? And how much of a disaster plan do we need if the worst case happens with the federal? So would it be possible to get that information along with that narrow one in kind of a broader way?
And what I will say is that we don't make a common practice of sharing our detailed financial situation in any situation. So this would be one that I would be more than happy to ensure that our legal department signs off and says it's okay to provide that level of detail if the commission makes a formal request.
Well, let's make a formal request. How's that? If there's no objection, I would like to move that the commission requests a report on all the funds that are used for correctional education from Dollar, from DPSCS, or any other related agency, like maybe Maryland State Department of Education, that we get a report on those funds from all its sources, and what the levels are now, and if there are any, and so let's do that motion first. Does everybody agree with that? We could get that report. It should be fairly simple to get that. I don't see why the legal people, we want to look at funding and help grow funding. Okay, does that make sense? Is there any objection to that? It's okay. So I take the silence means this is a formal request. So we're gonna have to send you, Ainsley and I put together, and I want to talk to Ann, John, Rochelle, what about the request? I may draft it and give me till next week because I got my grandkids screaming in the back of out in the hallway here, and so we'll get that and then go forward. Okay, is that fine, Ann? Does that work? Okay, and you can be a little more technical and explain it as we put the thing together. Okay, terrific. So you were
Ramika has her hand up.
Pardon?
Ramika has her hand up.
Go ahead.
Hi. So I just want to say that Stephen and the folks that are reporting out, you're spot on. And speaking from my perspective as a formerly incarcerated woman, but also as a person that works with students each and every day, I will say that there is a disconnect between case management and the education department. And so I do want to highlight that. And then also when we think about barriers, I know that Danielle had mentioned the room capacity, which is a thing because when we're planning out courses for the semester, we're capped at a certain number, and that number is based on the capacity handed down by fire marshal codes, and so we can't exceed that number. But I also want to say that when we think about these numbers, I think it's also helpful for us to not forget that we have institutional rules that are in place. So some students may not qualify to take certain programs if they aren't infraction free for a certain amount of time. And I think that also contributes to the numbers and eligibility and whether students are able to pursue these opportunities. And so I just wanted to also put that out there, that seems to be a misalignment or miscommunication between across the two departments, but also there are other factors, external factors that that weigh in. So I just wanted to bring that to light and just support that what you're saying in terms of your observation, and you all, I believe Alyssa shared, seems to be spot on, and I just want to like say that.
I appreciate that. What you're really saying in a little bit in summary is that the DLR and DPSCS can do their job identifying screening, but then there's other factors that come in. Case management can't just put them there. They got to see if they're infraction free, and there's other issues, and people need to be aware of that. But if we look at this closely with case management, we should be able to figure that out. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I think maybe even considering lowering some of those barriers, right? Instead of 6 months, what the conversation looks like around 90 days or 60 days, to get people in and, you know, in the classrooms. I do know that there's a transition phase when someone is first incarcerated. It's hard to adjust, right? And through those adjustments, sometimes they're not always positive, right? People go through a transitional phase that sometimes may be negative, and they may have an infraction, they may have something that is hindering them. But I think the best solution is to meet the individual where they are, extend these resources to them so that that transition isn't it's try to be as seamless as possible. But I think if someone's transitioning, they come in, they get a fraction, you have to wait 6 months. That's 6 months without any type of positivity interaction. And so what happens, idle mind is the devil's workshop. People start to pursue other things, right? And so making it more accessible and just being, in terms of the rules, a little more flexible and forgiving so that people know that they have options, and that other option is to pursue education and do other things that enhance and work towards that rehabilitation process that we talk about so much.
Points well taken. I appreciate that, Enrique. That's why we have people like you on the commission to make it real and bring us stuff that we don't ever see or it doesn't show up in statistics. But it happens. So thank you. So we're going to make we have two recommendations. Ann, I want you to do the GD report, but we're going to do the recommendation on the capacity of the class and on the funding streams. Ann, go ahead. I want to talk about the GD group we've been meeting, and Ainsley, both of you.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about the ABEGED special education group. Last time we got a good presentation from Rochelle about the current state of special education, GEDs, and adult basic education. So thank you, Rochelle, for that. We are thinking of moving, so right now the ABEGED special education work group meets the day after the commission meeting, and we would like to entertain a motion to move that to maybe like the second week of the month, or maybe the last Friday of the month, just because, you know, we have the big commission meeting and then right the next day is the ABEGED work group. You know, giving some breathing room I think might be a little helpful for that work group. So if anybody has any thoughts, if they would prefer maybe like the last Friday of the month or the second Friday of the month. I know that we have a lot of work groups meeting in that last week, so I don't know if it would be helpful to have all those work groups in the last week or to kind of space them out a bit.
Well, our meeting is tomorrow, right?
Yes.
At 10.
11.
11, that's right, as I asked that. So why don't we do that tomorrow then with the meeting? Whoever the people who attend will make that change.
Okay.
Any other report on the GED? I mean, I think we had Rochelle did a very good report on what's going on and all that. And I think the special ed thing we just had from Alyssa was very helpful. So I think we pretty much cover what the group is doing, although we don't really have a chair. We sort of go back and forth, and it's working very finely. I think, you know, with just having three of us who sort of chair it, and the rest of the people join in. Okay, what is the next item on the agenda if we want to go to the next report?
I'm also happy to do the career technology and workforce development one because I know Diana had to leave. Last time we got a report on the different licensing restrictions that incarcerated individuals may face post-release. So if that work group wants to look a little bit more into any recommendations surrounding licensure, and some best practices that other states are doing. So that's what we focused on last time. And I think we also got a good report on occupational programs as well from Rochelle.
I think we should have a more of a lengthy report, maybe at our next meeting on this, because I think it's extremely important to look at this. There's a lot of information that came up that's very helpful that the commission ought to know about licensing. So can we maybe have an item on the September commission meeting where we have more of a lengthy report, maybe with some formal presentation and with slides and everything? Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. And higher education, I know Andrea is doing all kinds of great stuff. So Andrea, would you please give us a report on your work group?
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Yes, so we met 1 week ago as our subgroup, and it was a great meeting. We had a few presentations. Zakia Lee from the University System of Maryland, USM, who I think is on this call still, came to our meeting and shared an overview of USM's efforts to expand higher ed and prison in the state as it pertains to the public institutions, the four-year institutions. They've been incredibly supportive for the past, I would say about 3 years, and they've done some work in gathering stakeholders from across the state to talk about, how to expand and how USM can be supportive to the universities doing this work. So that was a great presentation. We also had really good presentations from Jamel Freeman and Ainsley as well about statewide coalitions and also on access to state tuition for incarcerated learners. So those presentations were really informative. Those are two of our priority areas of how to establish a statewide coalition where there's many stakeholders involved in this effort to expand higher ed and prison. We did some research into other state models, for example, New York State and Tennessee and a few others. So we have plans to invite one of those states at the end of August, end of August. Our next meeting is the 28th. So we're hoping to invite a state to share how they've come to create their coalition or statewide effort. The point of having a statewide effort is really to share resources, bring in some grant funding that could go back to the individual programs, and really for everyone to kind of be on the same page in terms of providing the same level of access to students in the different programs. Ainsley was great with sharing information about other states that have changed legislation or added legislation that allows incarcerated learners to access state scholarship funding. So there was a report on that. We looked at a bunch of different states that over the past few years have changed legislation to allow incarcerated learners to access that. So we're looking at Maryland and how we could perhaps do that here since it's being done in many places. Right now, Maryland Higher Ed Commission has a lot of scholarship opportunities and tuition waiver programs for students. There is no language about excluding or including incarcerated learners. So we are trying to figure out what our next step is in terms of perhaps adding in some language that would allow incarcerated learners to access state funds to pay for tuition and fees and perhaps books. So those are the main updates. Again, we're meeting the end of August. And we're just going to continue really focusing on those two priority areas. We have a few others, but those seem to be the ones that need the most research right now. We also have a priority area about space and capacity. So perhaps at our meeting at the end of August, we can look at that because I think a lot of what the discussion has been today about capacity for the GED program and other programs applies to college as well, because we have the same restraints. So we've never really looked at our capacity. We kind of know based on what we're allowed to, like this kind of box we're able to work within, kind of know how many students we can serve, but we've never really formally looked at capacity. So perhaps this is something that, we can talk about as well. I don't know, Ainsley, do you have anything else that should be shared, or anybody else who was at our meeting last week that I perhaps missed?
I'm very impressed with your work, the committee and all that, and Ainsley's contributions to helping with the research. One thing we can just, I hate to get into politics, but some of the states that are, let's say, on the political orientation that Maryland has, have tremendous programs and scholarships, and I'll say Ohio and Texas, two of them. So, it should be apolitical, but we've had a hard time in Maryland getting post-secondary money for folks behind bars, whereas some other states, seems that they understand better than we do, and we're supposed to be more liberal or whatever. So this is really good work, and I hope we can have our delegates take a look at that, if it requires something legislatively. So
great, thank you.
Anybody have, you and Diana, she's not on it, but and the work of all the committees. I think this is where we're finding a lot of what we need to do from our committee work, is we don't have time for the commission during the hour and a half we meet or so to do all this. So thank you. So what's the next item on our agenda? I didn't print it out here. And
talking about future presentations.
Yes. So you want to talk about the Mackinac Center, please, Ainsley?
Yes. So the Mackinac Center for Public Policy is going to present next month in our September meeting. A couple of the researchers there have put out a pretty comprehensive report about best practices when it comes to prison education administration, and a ranking report of the different prison education programs throughout the country. So they're going to report back to us on best practices when it comes to prison education administration, as we kind of take our commission work and kind of focus it to a broader scope of, how prison education, like where it sits in the different departments and how it's administered. So we're going to hear from them next September, and their reports are going to be in the Dropbox for people to read beforehand. So we'll have a Q&A session so people can read the reports, come back with questions to ask the researchers.
Yeah, and we've had a preview. We interviewed these folks, and so we should probably try to get their publication out sooner than the meeting, and sooner the day before, if they can share stuff with us. We'll be talking with them. And then the other presentation, Dr. Lois Davis from RAND, she'll probably do that in October. She's been having some serious voice problems, and she was supposed to testify to Congress and had to back out of it. So I mean, she wants to talk about best practices and such, that she's been involved with the RAND Corporation. So we'll have her more specifically. We'll put out some ideas about her presentation. So we're at the point of adjournment. Let me just say something, and then if it's any comments, my report today, I'm trying to point out things that I see that I think, and then maybe I'm wrong if I don't have all the information that I see and observe, or that people tell me, and I get some consistency with the idea of we get together, try to solve it, and not to pinpoint or not to name people and say they're not doing this or not doing that. I don't think that's the case. I think I see people working hard. I see people with good intention, including members of this commission who are out there working in this program. And I sincerely mean that. I think people are trying to do a good job and have their heart and soul in this work, but some things aren't working the way they are. And so if I see that, I'm going to point it out. Some of it is from my experience previously working in the system, and I'm wondering why it can't work now. It did before, So, and I know in this discussion that some of you are seeing the same thing. So we're trying to find a resolution to issues, and hopefully we can increase our capacity. We can, keep the schools from closing so often. I don't know what we're going to do about correctional officers. That one, how do you solve that? If you don't have officers, you can't have programs. But so I didn't pick on them for not having programs. It's not their fault. And I noted that the teachers are working hard there, but they're frustrated. They told me that. It's not the way to teach, not the way to be an educator. So I hope you take my report, and, take the issue and take a good look at it. And if we get it right, maybe I don't have it right, but there's something there. And if it's not something there, we just get rid of it and go on to something else and take it in a positive vein. But I think this commission, although we cannot do anything, we can only recommend. We don't have power to do things, but I think it's a golden opportunity for all of us to really do something big over the next few years to make correctional education more important where it should be, and reach more people who are coming out as our returning citizens. And I think we all have our heart and soul in that, and I appreciate it. So if anybody has any comments or any additional things they want to do today, or issues that we should be looking at future meetings, does anybody have their hand up or anything right now? No? Okay, John, you popped up.
Yeah, I did. Hi, Steve. I just wanted to make a brief comment based on your correctional officer staffing comment. I also serve on the healthcare and treatment subcommittee under PJD. And on that committee, they've been directly attacking the staffing shortages at the institutions because of the health effects that it has on the population. And to that end, very recently, PRISM, which is the Prisoners' Rights Information System of Maryland advocacy organization, has sent DPSCS Carolyn Scruggs and the Attorney General's office a pretty pointed letter, essentially threatening legal action for the lack of staffing. That'll kind of have if that gains any traction, that'll kind of have a collateral effect for this group as well, because if it helps them solve the staffing problem, then, education would benefit as a result too, because the staffing issue affects all aspects of incarcerated life in the prisons, and not just education, but everything else. So I just wanted to point out that there is some advocacy taking place that is directly attacking the staffing issue, and we could kind of hopefully benefit from that laterally.
Is that letter public, and you could send it out so we can see it?
I don't know that it's public. I'll find out.
Okay.
I was sent a copy of it because I, serve on that subcommittee, but I'll find out if it is something that is public, and if so, then I'll send it out to you guys.
Okay. One thing, real answer our hand up. At RCI, there was somebody attempted suicide, and the medical people had just come back. Person was medically okay and all that, but I heard the medical people talking to the warden right in front of us about it, and that there had been at RCI a small number of suicide attempts. I mean, this is terrible, and it's a result of us being caged, literally caged all the time, And go ahead.
And so just since it's been brought up, and now I'll feel disingenuous if I don't say kind of what I'm working on as a result of it. One of the points in this letter was that they have tracked down the reasoning why people can't earn the full 20 diminution credits that they are supposed to be able to earn by statute. It is a case management policy manual restriction, and they've cited the case management policy manual, which I'll be happy to send to you, that is actually in conflict with the statute in Comar that says that you can earn 20 credits, but the case management policy limits you to only being able to earn 15 credits. So this is something that we've talked about in this group as a whole. It's something that I was going to hold until this topic came up on its own, but it is something that I'm in the process of writing up here. And I wrote back as a response to that letter that if that is a policy level restriction on people earning, that people can only earn 15 days when they do the behaviors that the legislature has said they should earn 20 credits for, we have a problem.
Well, what you should bring that to the commission. Just send it to the commission. We'll make an issue of it. I mean, don't sit back and wait till we come up with it. You spotted it. Get it up to us, and we can certainly make a recommendation. And we can't have a conflict of law and policy. Policy has to back off, and so we should look at that. Thank you.
I will write it up and send it here.
Okay. Are there any other comments for today? I appreciate everything, and John and Rochelle, I appreciate your response to these issues. And I'm sorry, Danielle, had to get off earlier, but it's a DPS, CS, and DLR joint responsibility for education. And so I wanted to draw us together more tightly to try to help solve some of these issues or bring them up so they can be solved by the proper people. And I appreciate your response and your help. Like you changed a lot of data collection things recently, and you showed us what you're doing now, and I appreciate that, because there was an issue that we found out. I think that we could do something different, and you responded positively. So that's great, and thank you. And so we will continue to work forward. Thank all of you, and John, if John's got his hand.
Yeah, just Stephen, wondering if you could hang on at the end after everybody goes, just for 30 seconds.
Yep, I can do that. And Ainsley too with me, when we do this, okay?
And Rochelle, if you want to hang out, that's cool too.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Any comments? Our delegates are still on. I don't know if there's any response they have to some of the stuff that relates to legislation. Do we have any? I don't have the list in front of me of who's still on right now.
Hi, Elizabeth Embry. I'm still on. I just want to say I'm very committed, and I think I can speak for the other delegates. We would love to work on legislation. Some of this, of course, there may be others, or it might even be departmental bills. But if there's anything that you'd like us to do, I would love to have a meeting about that in the next few months to get.
I think we're going to come up with some recommendations for legislation, special ed, and a couple other things.
Yep.
And, yep. That's you're our person there.
And you might want to convene the delegates, Pastor, myself, and Simpson, with a small group, and we can talk through who does what and have a strategy. So
thank you.
I'm sure they would love to be part of that.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm really happy and that we're going that direction. Thank you.
This is Delegate Pasteur. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, this has been a really good meeting. I want to ditto what Delegate Embry just said. It would be very helpful. I probably have irritated people, but it's okay. But it's helpful when we understand background, we understand history, we can take a look at some of the things and hold and process some of the things about what all of you are talking about, as opposed to just hearing it and waiting for it to end up in a report. So I want to ditto what Delegate Embry just said. It would be nice if we could be, if we can get together and be able to really ask questions and see and understand. So thank you, but this has been very interesting. I'm sorry I couldn't get on other than on the phone, but thank you.
On the phone any way you can. Thank you. Well, and thank both of you, and for your comments on it. So we'll work with all three delegates to. Okay. Anybody else? Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Somebody?
I will move to adjourn.
Thank you, Ann. A second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. So this meeting is adjourned, and a few of us are just going to hang out for a few minutes to talk. And so thank you for all your participation.